Rev up your engines!
Man, General Motors is still at it making crap. Now they had to recall 24,000 Buick Regals because the brakes might not work right. This is why too much technology is sometimes bad. It turns out the electronic brake control software may be bad and that it won't work right. You get all the software, all these computers, they screw up. The old-fashioned ones, where you stepped on the brake, that pushed a vacuum booster that then gave power to the brakes, so you had power brakes. Pretty simple, reliable system. You start adding computers on top of it, crap happens. In this case, they say it's a software issue. They always try to say it's a software issue because then they don't have to place any parts, they just reprogram something, right? A hardware problem, and they're just covering their butts because I've seen this over the ages. They'll say, oh, the automatic transmissions aren't shifting right because it's a software. We're just going to reprogram. And then my customers get them reprogrammed and they still run like crap. And eventually the transmissions need rebuilding because they weren't built right in the first place. Software fixes are always the cheapest way to fix it, so they try that first and pray that they can get away with that and they don't actually physically replace things that's going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, here's another typical GM screw up. They had to recall a bunch of vehicles, but they don't have enough parts to fix them with. 2014 and 2015, Chevy Equinox and GMC's Terrains are recalled because their windshield wiper modules need completely replacing. They just wear out and the wipers don't work anymore. Turns out the ball joints inside the wiper assembly, let them go up and down, the ball joints like in your elbow, let it go up and down, they wear out and then they don't work. And GM says, that quote, "We announced the recall, but we are not executing it because we need to have our suppliers build the parts to begin repairs." So, if you've got one, and the windshield wipers stop working, they don't have any parts to replace them with, so you're just going to have to wait. Maybe if it's raining outside, don't get in your Terrain. They might fail and you won't be able to see. And GM doesn't have the parts to fix it with because there are so many of them that are under the recall. Hundreds of thousands of them. And Fernie says, should I sell my 05 Saab 9.3 for a newer Volvo? Saab has 100,000 K. It's been good, but things are starting to go out. Fuel pump, AC leaking. Should I keep the 17-year-old cars, or I'm looking at a 2019 Volvo S60? What do you think? Obviously, maybe you're Swedish. You seem to like Swedish cars, right? Saabs aren't being made anymore. The 9.3 was probably the car that destroyed Saab. They weren't very good cars, yes. If you can get rid of that stupid thing and get a 19 Volvo S60, go ahead and do it if you can get rid of that Saab. Parts are hard to get in the United States. You got 100,000 miles on it, and you see it's starting to have problems, and you've spent money on it already. I would definitely get rid of it. Maybe you can find some fool that'll want to buy the thing, or you could trade it in. Because, see, it's worldwide, too. So, CarMax, whatever, a lot of times they ship them out of the country. So if they give you good money and they ship it out of the country, who cares? You know, you get money for it. The Saabs went out of business for various reasons, and those 9.3s are one of the worst cars they ever made. It drove them over the edge into bankruptcy. And Volvo's still going, and the S60s are good cars. You know, they're still European cars, and they're high-tech. They're expensive to fix when they break, but they're a lot better made than the Saabs were. There's no arguing that whatsoever. Donut said, which car would be a better backup car? An 07 Nissan Versa hatchback with 190,000 miles, or 2006 Nissan Murano with 89,000 miles. All right, well, I'd have to say the Murano. I wouldn't buy either myself, but it's only got 89. The other one's got twice as much, and the Versas were cheaply made cars. They're no fun to drive around, and the Muranos ride better, but the very fact that one has 100,000 miles more than the other, I would not get that one. I wouldn't. The Versa with 190,000 miles is probably on its last leg. The transmission's probably starting to go out. Now, the only reason I would pick the Versa over the Murano would be this. If all that mileage was put on the highway mileage is equivalent to 10% city. Say that was all highway. The 190,000 is equivalent like 19,000 stop-and-go city driving. If that was the case and a mechanic checked it and said the tranny's working good, that might not be a bad car to buy, but it would have to be proven that it was driven on the highway almost entirely. Because if it's stop-and-go city driving, that Versa is on its last legs. Like you said, I wouldn't buy either vehicle, but you're using it as a backup vehicle. If you can get it at a cheap enough price, I definitely go for the one that's got 100,000 miles less on it. Warrior Rob says, when I drive over 60, my Dodge Ram 1500 vibrates, but my steering doesn't seem to be affected by it. What could it be? If it's your front tires out of balance or rims bent or whatever, the steering wheel will do the shaking. You say it's not the steering, but the whole vehicle. The main things that do that are if your back tires are worn out around, your rims are bent, they're out of balance, the whole vehicle will shake, but not the steering wheel. It'll make the whole vehicle shake. But also, two other things that is a Dodge product. One, is they have relatively weak transmissions. And if your transmission is going out at a certain speed, that'll make the whole vehicle shake. But a cheaper fix that often happens is, that's a truck. It's rear-wheel drive. You got a big drive shaft, and there's universal joints on it. When the joints wear, you get to a certain speed, the drive shaft starts shaking, and it makes the whole vehicle shake. So pray all you have is a bad tire in the back, or a bad balanced, or a bent rim, or one of the U-joints is worn. You can watch my video on replacing U-joints. Get under there, you grab them, and if you twist them and they go clunker, clunker, see which joint is clunking and have that joint replaced. Often it's a U-joint that goes bad on those trucks that'll make them shake like that. And it won't make the wheel shake, it'll make the whole vehicle shake. Faith member says, I got 2011 Honda Insight. The AC isn't cold enough. When it idles, and when I drive, it takes forever for it to get cold. Sometimes it blows hot, then cold again. I checked the pressure, it was actually a little high, and it had yellow dye in it. I released a little and worked better, but what should I do? All right. Well, one, if it had too much refrigerant in it, that can damage the system, but also it could have had air in the system. You get air in the system, that makes the pressure go higher. I would advise you to do this, and that's what I always advise, especially with a Honda. Have a mechanic or do yourself evacuate the entire system out, so there's nothing in it, for about an hour. That'll get all the air and moisture out of the system. Then fill it with a factory load. Like if it's 570 grams, you put 570 grams of refrigerant in it. Then see what happens. If that fixes it, hurrah! Might have air in the system, who knows what these idiots. But if it's been damaged and it's full and you run it now, knowing Hondas, the compressor's probably been damaged or it just flat wore out itself. They do have very weak AC compressors, but you do say you only got 77,000 miles, so it could have been somebody screwed it up. Empty it out, fill it up, see what happens. It might work perfectly fine then. That often fixes the whole shooting match. I Am Neil said, should you replace wheel bearings in pairs? Do you have to change them in pairs like brakes, or can you change only the one that's bad? See, here's the thing. All four wheels are going down a road. They have different things that happen to them, especially right versus left. You're in the driver's seat, at least in the United States. You see the left wheel. There's a hole coming, you'll get out of the way. You don't see the right front wheel as good. You often hit holes and curbs with the right wheel. So normally, I replace a lot more right wheel bearings than left, because people hit things, they hit curbs, they hit big potholes, and if one's worn and makes a noise, what the heck? You can just replace it. It doesn't matter. If the other one eventually wears out and makes noise, you can change it later. It isn't going to affect how the car drives or anything like that. Now, let's say you got a car that's got 350,000 miles. What the heck? You might as well change them both, because they're both going to be pretty well worn out. But you don't have to. But I've had a lot of people say, I got wheel bearing noise. I can really hear the right front one. They replace the right front one, and then they hear the left one, because the right one was louder than the left, but the left one's still making noise. So if you change one and you're still getting noise, then change the other one. You don't have to do it, but, you get noise, then it's a good idea to change them. Nathaniel J. says, the normal operating cooling temperature of my vehicle is going higher. 2011 Frontier. It used to go 192 to 197, now it's going 201 to 206. I replaced the radiator to see if it fixed if it wouldn't. I noticed if I stomp on the gas, the temperature goes down quickly. What could be wrong? Numero uno on that would be your water pump is just weak. A lot of times it is the radiator, but you replaced it, made no difference. So that just means that it's not flowing correctly because the pump is getting weak. I would replace the water pump. You say you got 151,000 miles. I'm sure the bearings are starting to wear and everything wears out eventually. Now, very few mechanics have this, but if you can find a mechanic, they do make an actual flow meter. You can take the radiator hose off, put the meter in, and then see what the flow is and see whether the flow is high or low if you really wanted to test it. But hardly anybody has one of those machines. I don't even have one. And they're going to charge you a bunch of money to use it, so what the heck? I would just say put a water pump on it, and you'll probably find that'll fix the whole thing, because you changed the radiator, it made no difference. And the only other thing it can be, it's not going through good enough because the pump isn't pumping it correctly. So yes, I would say replace the water pump. That'd be the most logical thing. You did the logical thing. Usually it is the radiator, can't dissipate heat because it's old. They're made out of aluminum, it doesn't rust, but it corrodes, and it corrodes inside where you can't see it, so they can't dissipate heat correctly. But you tried that and it made no difference, so what the heck? Put a water pump on it. Well, if you think all the airbags in the world are bad, that were made by Takata, other people made crappy ones too. Audi's recalling a bunch of their A8s and A4s because they think they didn't put the right type of materials in their airbags, and that the ammonia nitrate that they have in to make them blow up wasn't stabilized correctly, so that it may not work when it's supposed to, or it might absorb moisture and blow up by itself when it's not supposed to. So it's not just Takata that made crappy airbags. You got one of these Audi Audis, check it out. National Highway Traffic Safety Association.gov website, check it out. See if yours is a recall and you can take it in and get new airbags put in. It isn't just Takata that made bad airbags. The Germans obviously did it too, and now they're recalling a bunch of theirs. This is older, 97, 98 Audis, and knowing Audis, probably a bunch of them aren't even on the road anymore. They're in junkyards. People got sick of paying for repairs and just gave up on the cars, so there's probably a bunch of them that aren't even rolling down the road anymore. But if you do have one, check into it. See if you need to get new airbags, and whatever you do, make sure you keep your seat belts on, because if they don't work, you get killed, and at least if you have the seat belt on and it blows, you're going to be held in place better than if you're moving all over the place. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.